Hey, welcome back to the Unbelievable Podcast. I am BJ Reidell, back here with my guy, Drew Mahowald, and today we are breaking down the Vikings' impending matchup with the Packers on Monday Night Football, a game that will likely decide the fate for the Vikings this season. If they win, they're in. If they lose, they still have an opportunity to get in next week. But this is truly the last shot the Vikings have at the division. So I know that every game against the Packers is always an important one, but this one carries a little bit more weight. I'm sure that we're not as a fan base. I don't think we're all that confident that Green Bay is going to lose to Detroit next week. But just to hold out hope, this game is certainly important. And if nothing else, there's an opportunity here to keep the Packers winless at US Bank Stadium. So this will be a great matchup. We'll break this one down top to bottom like we typically do for our Thursday shows, and then we'll make our picks for the week, and we'll offer a gambling lock or some whatever word you wanted to use to describe what our gambling picks have been this year. I actually got mine right last week. Drew did not, though, just for the record.
Okay.
But yeah, so that's the game plan here for today. So let's just let's do a Thursday question. I always seem to kind of forget about that. Let me just pull up my little notepad here. Let's do it. Should we do a Christmas one? Nah, we got another week of shows. We got probably one more show before Christmas. So we'll bump that one out for one more. I'll do one that I mentioned to you in the past. What is one basic life skill that you're bad at?
There's a lot of those. Anything to do with a car.
Well, yeah, I don't think that counts as a basic life skill anymore with cars.
Okay. Well, I mean, how about cooking?
Cooking
Food. I'm trying to learn.
Yeah.
Like I can make pasta. I can make I like to buy ingredients for homemade pizza now, which means I buy a crust that's already made and I just heat it up and then put like the sauce and the cheese on it, so it's not even that hard to make.
Right. Sounds like you need a crock pot.
I use an air fryer to make frozen food.
Okay.
I don't actually get like pork and keep in a crock pot all day or anything like that. So
that's what you need. That's the starter pack for cooking.
Yeah, very much a novice when it comes to cooking. I'll go with that for now.
I'm not particularly good at cooking either. That's why I do use a crock pot. Just throw a bunch of meat in there in the morning, then come home and dinner's on the table. For me, I came up with this question. I'm just going to go with the answer with the reason why I came up with it. I'm really bad at spreading cream cheese on bagels. What happened was I went and got a dozen bagels or a baker's dozen at Brugger's, and I came back and I was, how they do it, when they make the bagel in front of you, they make it look so easy, right? They just they grab a scoop, they slobber it on there, and just no problem. I'm absolutely awful at putting cream cheese on bagels, and for that reason, I tend to refrain from doing so, even though I do enjoy cream cheese.
Okay.
So. That's one life skill that I'm not particularly good at. So if you have any fun life skills to share with us, feel free to drop.
Here's one I'm really bad at as well. Is when you're filling up your car with gas and getting exactly zeros, on the number.
Why is that a thing? Why is that? That's becoming I've seen other people bring this up now. This is becoming like a thing.
So with my old car, I'd always fill it up $30, and so I would try and get 30 every time, and I was 7% hitting it on the number, and I would usually stop short of it, well short of it, just so I could try and get it, on the dot. I always end up 30.02, 30.03, 30.01, but
what's a really easy way to just bypass that? Just go into the gas station and hand them $30.
Yeah, but that's not as fun.
It's not. Yeah. Okay. Fair enough.
That's like being spoiled in your favorite TV show.
I don't think I understand the connection there, but I understand where you're going with on this.
You don't get all right. We've lost the conversation.
They already turned off the show. All right, let's talk about the Vikings and Packers, shall we? That should be fun. We could do that.
It's more fun than talking about gas at $30 or whatever.
All right, so the Vikings have already played the Packers once this season, as I'm sure you guys are all too familiar with. The result of that game has kind of put the Vikings in a bit of a bind. We talked about that a bit on the last show. Last time these two teams met, it did not go great in the first quarter for Minnesota. They allowed 14 points, and that kind of put Green Bay in the driver's seat basically for the rest of the game.
They essentially allowed 21 in the first quarter because I believe that they scored on one of the first plays of the second quarter as well.
So the Vikings,
21-0.
Yeah, the Vikings found themselves down 21-0 almost immediately, and Dalvin Cook was able to sort of re-energize not just the team but the fan base as well, and kind of give the Vikings a fighting chance with that quick, 75-yard-ish touchdown to get the Vikings right back into it. The problem that this game ultimately came down to was a poor decision by Kirk Cousins to throw into the back of the end zone, trying to give his guy a chance as he described it. That ball was intercepted. The Vikings ultimately dropped this game 21-16, and because of that, we now face a situation where it seems rather unlikely that Minnesota is going to get even have a chance to win the NFC North division. They're going to end up being a 5 or a 6 seed as a wild card. So this game, as you mentioned, multiple times on the last show, that game kind of ruined the Vikings season. You started predicting, I think maybe a week or two later, that the Packers had wrapped up the division, and it certainly seems like that statement is going to prove accurate here. However, all of that being said, that game is in the past. There's nothing we can do to change that. The outcome of this game could still very well matter. Green Bay does have to play in the division next week. I know that it's David Blau. I know that
maybe Kyle Sloter.
Maybe Kyle Sloter. I know that how great would that be? By the way, if Kyle Sloter was to play and to beat Green Bay, that would be.
I do think there's a better chance than most people think. We'll get into how I feel about Green Bay, and I'm usually pretty scared of Green Bay just because of how much I respect Aaron Rodgers, but I am not as high on the Packers this year, and I feel like a road game in the division, depending on what kind of motivation Detroit has, who knows? They might pull something up. Who knows? They might go Cardinals 2003, like the way the Cardinals did the Vikings that year. Yep. But we'll get into that next week.
Well, we look at this situation with the Packers, and Packers fans love to talk about how the Vikings have never beaten anyone. Not beaten anyone this season. Now, you look at what the Packers have done this year. They really haven't beaten anyone either. They beat the Chiefs without Patrick Mahomes. They beat the Cowboys just like the Vikings did. And they lost to San Francisco. Well, they got shredded by San Francisco.
Yeah.
They lost to the Chargers as well. They lost to they beat Oakland. So you look at their resume, and their collective resume is not all that much better than the Vikings. It really isn't.
It's not really any better besides the fact, the only thing they got going for them in terms of head-to-head is that they played one quarter significantly better than the Vikings week 1 or week 2, and that resulted in a win.
Their strength of victory is mostly a product of beating Matt Moore and beating the Vikings themselves. That's really the difference here.
Yeah. They haven't really then they have a couple of really bad losses.
Yeah.
Philly at home. The Chargers, they've lost by 15 or 20 or something like that.
And that was really, that game was more out of hand than the score ultimately said it was.
And that Niners game was never close for a second.
No.
So in their losses, they've looked really bad. And then basically in their wins, aside from the Vikings game, and then, aside from maybe Dallas, and then the Chiefs game, I suppose, if what you want to feel about Matt Moore there, they haven't blown out the weaker opponents either. They haven't. Washington last week, or was that last week when they won 20-15?
2 weeks ago. Yeah.
2 weeks ago. That's a team that you should take care of, no problem, get out of there, win by double digits. And Dwayne Haskins and Adrian Peterson stuck around. Bill Callahan and his 1974 offense stuck around. They don't threaten. They don't pose the threat that they used to on offense, and then defensively, I think there's still a lot of talent in the secondary.
They're better than they were last year.
They got a couple good pass rushers, but They're not stopping the run consistently, and they don't scare me as much there either, or enough to. I mean, they might be. They seem pretty weak as an 11-3 team. Like as a 2 seed, 11-3, you think, oh, that's a dominant team. Definitely get scared of them. I don't feel like that way at all. I might almost say, I think Green Bay and Dallas are very comparable right now.
That's an interesting perspective. I think that we both kind of will enter this this breakdown here as not that impressed with the Packers. I'm generally on the same page as you. I don't think that it's bias either. I mean, granted, I am a Vikings fan. I inherently hate the Packers just like you guys do. But I do watch literally every Packers game that I can, mostly for this show, to be honest with you, so that I have a good perspective on, when these two teams do meet, because it's, arguably the most important matchup every single year. And I'm just honestly not that impressed with the overall collection of talent that they have compiled here and how they are performing as a unit. Well, two different units, I suppose. And that really, to me, that starts with Aaron Rodgers, because as you have pointed out numerous times in the past, he's one of the best players to ever play the quarterback position, period. Mm-hmm. Okay? We've established that as a group. We can collectively say that even though we don't like Aaron Rodgers personally, professionally, any of that, he's still a hell of a quarterback. Okay? So we've established that. The point that I want to make here, though, is that he is not the same Aaron Rodgers that he was even 2 years ago, let alone 4 or 5 years ago when he was really peaking and, won his Super Bowl and whatnot. He doesn't seem to be that same guy. Now, can he still throw that dart downfield while rolling out to, his right side and, make the defense look pedestrian and, basically just be the most annoying player of all time? Yeah, he can still do those things. He just hasn't been doing them as consistently. And when he was in the MVP race earlier this year, he really wasn't on the same pedestal as the guys that he was being evaluated next to in terms of performance this season alone. He has not played to the level that Russell Wilson has, that Lamar Jackson has, that Patrick Mahomes has,
that Kirk Cousins has.
He simply has not been the best quarterback. Well, he hasn't been the best quarterback in the league. He barely is. You can make an argument that he hasn't been the best quarterback in this division. Okay? So that's kind of where I stand with Aaron Rodgers. Now, does he still have the talent to get the job done? Is he still the most dangerous player on this roster? Is he still very good at his position relative to the rest of the NFL? Absolutely. All of those statements are true. But he's not as scary as he used to be, in my opinion.
No, he's not. I think I saw, I don't know if you follow, I think it's Ben Baldwin on Twitter. He does a lot of analytics stuff, evaluating quarterbacks with, advanced stats and whatnot. But basically, he kind of, this wasn't even a stat per se. He just kind of came to a conclusion based on looking at his data and whatnot, and said, people tend to overrate quarterbacks who make big splash plays or kind of pull things out of their backside, if you know what I'm saying. And Rodgers has a tendency to do that quite a bit, where he'll kind of scramble around and make a play out of nothing. Mahomes has done that before. Russell Wilson does that a little bit. But then at the same time, the guys who kind of just make the throws they need to make consistently on time, those type of players, a la Kirk Cousins, are a little bit underrated for the most part. And a lot of that's just due to, a public perception. When you see those big splash plays, the big wow factor.
You remember the big moment a lot more than you remember the 8-yard slant over the middle that was converted for an important first down.
Right, because, even the deep bombs that Kirk is throwing to Diggs, for example, other quarterbacks do that all the time, but it's the consistency that Kirk has done that this year kind of surpasses everybody else. But you do see those plays from every quarterback, because every quarterback that starts can make a 50-yard throw once in a while, and it'll show up. It just doesn't happen as consistently. So I guess the point I'm wrapping up to here is, Rodgers, his consistency with accuracy and the ability to just pick apart a defense has seemingly dropped off this year. And maybe it's because they're running the ball a little bit more. They're really getting Aaron Jones and Jamal Williams involved a ton this year, which I think they should be getting Jones even more involved because he's way better. But that's a point for a later time in the show. But Rodgers is definitely vulnerable. And outside of Devontae Adams at receiver, they don't really have a ton So they're kind of limited there too.
Yeah, you look at the statistics for Rodgers this year. He's sitting. His statistics are still fairly impressive, I think. 24-2 touchdown to interception ratio. That always looks great. But Rodgers also has this tendency where he refuses to throw interceptions, which obviously is a good trait. But
he's being criticized now kind of the same way I think Teddy was 2015 or 2016 when 2015 when his interception numbers were low, but it was because
he wasn't willing to take the risk.
He threw the ball away a ton.
Right.
And Rodgers is getting the same type of thing, and people are like, well, he's not throwing interceptions, and the other side is saying, well, yeah, if you throw it away, 10% of the time or whatever it is, that's gonna take down your interception numbers instead of you take any risks. And if you think about the way he plays and watching the Packers games, it does seem like he's not throwing passes unless the guy is wide open. It seems like he doesn't trust his receivers besides Davante Adams to make contested catches.
Can you really blame him though?
No, you can't. You can't, because you got Alan Lazard, you have Valdez Scaling, who basically just runs in a straight line. Jake Kumaro, it's not like he has a ton to work with.
There's not a lot to love, yeah.
Basically, Aaron Jones is their top slot receiver. So he'll go out there, line up in the slot, he'll run a flag route or something. But there's not a lot out there. So to his defense, I guess I understand that. But at the same time, even when he is forced to make a basic throw on a slant or an out route, the accuracy is wavering a little bit more than it has in the past.
Yeah, we have gotten kind of used to seeing his completion percentage to be very close to 70% every year. He's dropped below 64% this year at 63.3. So that's certainly not Aaron Rodgers-esque, but that's just one statistic. You also look at his yards per attempt. It's at 7.3 right now. That's by no means not a bad yards per attempt, but it's not Aaron Rodgers. It's just not these simply are not the numbers that we expect to see from the guy that has been harassing Vikings fans for years, straight up. He is not having as good of a year this year as we are used to seeing. And I think you can make a very strong argument that Kirk Cousins is having a better year. Statistically, I think it's pretty much definitive that Cousins' statistics are better. Period. The question being here is, which quarterback would you rather have in this matchup? And I think a lot of Vikings fans would still have some reservation picking Kirk Cousins over Aaron Rodgers. That being said, it is a lot closer than it was at this time last year. I'm a lot more comfortable with Kirk Cousins going up against Aaron Rodgers this year. And that's partially because Cousins has gotten better, more, making better decisions, being less careless with the football. He's also got a better crop of players to, work with than Rodgers does. And part of that is just the fact that it's plain and simple, folks. Rodgers has dropped off a little bit. I don't think that it's not blasphemy to say that a player has kind of fallen off from being, the pinnacle of the position. It's just simply facts right now. And, he could still easily come out and throw for 400 yards against this Vikings secondary. This is not to take away from his overall ability or his overall talent, but his season to date, through 15 games, we basically have the full sample size. It has not been great for Aaron Rodgers this year. It's been solid. That's really what it's been. This is not top 10, top 5 Aaron Rodgers. This is more like, good quarterback of a solid roster with a competent coach that's winning football games against a lot of bad teams. That's what I'm seeing overall from Rodgers. So you mentioned some other pieces here on this roster. Let's dig into some of these other guys, because Aaron Jones is probably the biggest piece here. Him and Davante Adams, who, by the way, is also having a very down year. I believe he's just scored his second touchdown of the season.
So he missed a bunch of games with that injury, so I gotta cut on some slack there, because he had that, I think, turf toe and missed 4 or 5 games. But
and that can be very frustrating.
Because for a while, his top receiver was Geronimo Allison or Aaron Jones. Really, I remember there was that stretch of games where they basically threw the ball to Aaron Jones and Jamal Williams exclusively because Adams was unavailable. But
right, and there was actually a point amongst Packers fans that I saw this on Twitter. This is not by intelligent Packers fans. This is more the dramatic, kind of whimsical Packers fans. They wanted to trade Davante Adams so that Rodgers wouldn't focus on him. I was like, you guys, that's your only good target right now. That's really the only good option. So let's go. Let's do the running backs first. You mentioned before, and that's facts. Aaron Jones and Jamal Williams have basically been splitting time this year. It seems to me like Jones tends to get about 60% of the snaps, whereas Williams gets about 40%. The differential there to me from, my soft analyzation of what I see on TV is Williams tends to be a better blocker. He's just a little bit bigger as a human being. So in a situation where Rodgers is in need of extra protection, Williams tends to be the guy on the field that's eating up that block, whereas Jones really came out of college as a scat back. He's gotten bigger, and he's been able to run between the tackles a little bit more. He's improved in that fashion throughout his career, but he still is not like Williams is a bigger dude. He could be a fullback, really, and he's able to take on those blocks a little bit better. He's a solid runner. He does not have the explosion that Jones has. Jones is your home run threat. He's also your guy on the goal line. There's a reason why he scored, 14 touchdowns or something ridiculous like that this year. And
Aaron Jones has 17 touchdowns.
17 touchdowns, and he scored like 7 of them in 2 games. So he is their lead back. He is the guy that you need to shut down in the backfield. Williams is not going to kill you. He's just going to he's going to be the one that bleeds out the clock towards the end
he'll
of the
annoy
game,
you. That's exactly what happened last time in this. And
he annoys fantasy owners too.
Right. Well, yeah, I had Aaron Jones in like every single freaking league this year.
Yeah.
And Jamal Williams was annoying to deal with. But with Jones is going to be shifty. He'll accelerate really quick. I think he's a better runner and more athletic and tougher to tackle. And I think Jamal Williams is more reliable. And I think he, like you said, blocks better, which is why he gets more time as well. But they do this thing where they don't spell him in the middle of a drive. It's the guy like, all right, Aaron Jones, you're going to get this whole drive. And then, they go down and score, they kick a field goal, whatever. And then the next drive, it's Jamal Williams, and he plays the whole drive. Like, that's the one thing I haven't really understood because there's not really a pattern to how they use them besides that. So, but, I mean, like you said, when these two teams met last time, Aaron Jones, I think he had 100 yards rushing and a touchdown. And then at the end of the game, Jamal Williams was the guy on that last drive who kind of bled the clock out when the Vikings needed to get a stop to get that ball back after the Kirk interception. And he was the guy who got a couple first downs. So not that Jamal's bad back. I just think Aaron Jones is very talented as a runner, but Williams is still effective, obviously.
Absolutely. And really what kind of separates the two running backs here is the fact that Aaron Jones, you can split him out, and as you mentioned before, you can split him out as a wide receiver, basically, and he can run routes. He's this isn't a great comparison this year based off of the way that this other player has performed, but he's kind of an Alvin Kamara light in the way that the Packers use him. He's going to be used as a receiver. He's going to be used as a rusher. But ultimately, he's not a ground and pound runner. He's more of a guy that you're going to try to get to the outside and let him beat someone, to the edge.
Yeah,
that tends to be a
little bit of Austin Eckler too, kind of a similar where like the Chargers will put him out wide, or they'll put him in the slot, or they'll use that little jet sweep action, but their little like pitch pass snap thing. They do that with Aaron Jones quite a bit. You know what I'm talking about, right?
Yeah,
where,
I got
quarterback gets it and just tosses it forward, and it technically counts as a pass, and it's like a foot. They do that with Aaron Jones quite a bit. So, but they get these guys involved because they are good with the football. They make people miss, but B, their receiving core outside Devontae Adams is not much to
it's atrocious. It's atrocious.
It's rough. I mean, obviously Minnesota with Thielen out had pretty weak besides Diggs. But this might be worse.
Yep.
Outside of Adams.
Yeah, so this is the lineup that they're dealing with here as a whole. Adams is going to be at the top. He's your number one receiver. He is going to command the most attention. He's going to command the most targets. You've got Marquez Valdez-Scantling, who I believe you mentioned this earlier as well. He basically runs 1 or 2 routes, and they almost always end up with him 30 or 40 yards downfield. That tends to be what he's been this year. He ends up getting like two targets a game, and he has like a Deshaun Jackson stat line where it's like 1 catch for 45 yards and maybe a touchdown, something along those lines. He's certainly not a fully developed player. He just gives you a little bit of game-breaking ability. And once in a while, he'll beat you. I believe during the last Vikings game, he was basically ineffective. So double check on that. Under 20 yards receiving for Valdez-Scantling. The rest of this depth chart, you got Jake Kumaro, who came from San Francisco after, I believe he was undrafted. He's essentially he's a he's sort of a similar story to Adam Thielen, if I'm remembering him right. He was a lower,
except for the All-Pro part and like 1,000-yard seasons and all of that.
Right. Okay. Let me rephrase. He's Adam Thielen, the Wisconsin version that hasn't bloomed yet, and he certainly is not. It does not seem likely.
Might not bloom.
Yes, he does not seem likely to bloom like Adam Thielen did. But he's from Wisconsin, Whitewater, so Packers fans embrace him.
Yeah, screw them.
So yeah, I also do not like Whitewater.
They just beat the Johnnies. They just kicked the Johnnies out of the D3 playoffs. So screw them.
So a little bit of bias there. Okay. So the other guys that we've got on this depth chart that'll see some time, Geronimo Allison, who has some hilarious tweets. I highly recommend searching his name because I am not allowed to say what he said on this show. So go ahead and check those out. That's really the best thing that he's brought to my life so far. He has some talent. There are plenty of Packers faithful that believe that Allison will ultimately be the number 2 guy here. He has plenty of talent. He's got natural physical ability. He's fluid. But I don't think that he's got the highest football IQ. He runs incorrect routes sometimes. He's out of position quite a bit. He does a lot of things wrong. Let's just put it simply like that. So there's a reason why he gets taken off the field for guys like Allen Lazard, who does not necessarily have the greatest physical stature or the beaming 40-yard time.
He's 6'5", 220. He's a big dude. That's the thing I'm scared about. Like, we saw Mike Williams beat Mike Hughes last week a couple times. If there's any receiver besides Adams that I'd be a little bit scared of, it'd be Lazard, basically just because of his size.
But he doesn't offer that like high upside athletic talent that you're looking for in a receiver.
No, I know. I mean, none of these guys do. But from a pure size standpoint, there's a mismatch to be had there if it's schemed up the right way by LaFleur.
And that's basically what you're going to get here from this receiving core. You've also got Ryan Grant, too, who, to my knowledge, does not play all that much. And by all means is not a factor in this passing offense. So that's the group that you're looking at for that Aaron Rodgers will be throwing to. You may as well include Aaron Jones in there as well because he basically plays wide receiver half the time.
Yeah. Then Jimmy Graham, I suppose, but
Jimmy Graham has been, I don't know. Let me ask you this question about Jimmy Graham. Was Jimmy Graham a product of Sean Payton? Was he never really that good of a player? Or did he age out when he went to Seattle and just he wasn't?
I think both. I mean, any receiver benefits from being in that Saints offense.
Of course,
I mean,
but he was
look at the
literally
names that have had big seasons there. Like
he was on a Hall of Fame path. He was the best receiving tight end maybe of all time. When him and Gronk were kind of having those seasons where like uncustomary at the time, which were not customary receiving seasons for tight ends before you got the Travis Kelce's and George Kittles, the world that all kind of came in all at once. It was basically Gronk and Graham has not been the same since he got traded to Seattle. And he's even worse in Green Bay. He drops catches now. You know, he's basically been reduced to a red zone threat that sometimes drops the ball. That is who he is in this offense at this point.
Packers tight ends have never been like big receiving threats as far as, you know, since I've been following.
Basically since Jermichael Finley.
But even then, like, he didn't put up big numbers, and he was like, in terms of talent, he was one of the most talented receiving tight ends like in football. And he didn't put up the numbers that he should have, I think, because they just didn't throw to him very much in that offense. And I thought it was kind of just a McCarthy thing, and I thought this year we'd see something different. And maybe it's a Rodgers thing. He just turns away from his tight ends because he's always trying to scramble out and make the big play and all this stuff. I don't know.
Or maybe he's damaged from Jermichael Finley because he still continues to come after him whenever he can.
Yeah, maybe that's it.
All right, so to round out this offense, you got the front five here. Couple of nice names on this list. You've got David Bakhtiari, obviously, who has been a staple of this offensive line for quite some time. You got Brian Bulaga on the right side, another talented offensive tackle. You know, very good bookends, historically speaking. I think as a unit, this group has had a bit of a down year, but there are some nice building blocks. Corey Linsley a couple of years ago seemed like a masterful draft pick in the 6th round. He's still very solid center, don't get me wrong. But I think that he has not performed to the level that he did as a rookie. Billy Turner, a former NDSU guy from Mounds View, Minnesota, he has been very, very average at right guard. and that might be putting it kindly, to be honest with you. But then you've got this rookie Elgin Jenkins, who might be, might be having the best season out of all 5 of them at the left guard spot. He's been absolutely dominant as a rookie. Fantastic player. It seems like they got a really nice piece for this unit moving forward. But really, this kind of comes down to Bakhtiari and Balaga and how they're able to handle Everson Griffin and Daniil Hunter, as these matchups typically do when you have 2 outstanding defensive ends that get pressure like no other. The difference being here is that I think the Vikings can get interior pressure on this group here. Jenkins is outstanding, don't get me wrong, but you've got 2 links there in Turner and Lindsley, particularly Turner, that I think the Vikings can take advantage of. And, as we've talked about in the past, when you're able to collapse the pocket from the outside, it really matters. It really becomes important how much of a push you can get up front. And I think that Billy Turner especially is a guy that you can get a push against relative to the rest of this offensive line.
Yeah, I think you're right about that. But I think at the end of the day, it's like, if you take away the first quarter of that last game, Griffin and Hunter were absolutely dominant in that game, and they really made it, and you could see the impact they were making, not necessarily getting the sacks, tallying the sacks in the stat sheet, but they were getting all kinds of pressures.
Griffin nine quarterback hits.
Bakhtiari was getting beat often by Griffin, which hasn't been the case when that matchup has taken place very often. But he did pretty well in that game, which gives me a little bit more optimism for this matchup that the Vikings can get pressure on Rodgers. And like you said, if they Jaleel Johnson got some pressure last week, and got that sack, if they can get somebody to step up and provide consistent pressure in the middle, that's only going to make it more difficult for Rodgers. But yeah, I think between Hunter and Griffin, I think the Vikings are going to win a lot of the time there. And I think they'll get a few sacks and get pressures and contain this offense that really isn't that explosive to me. So it's not like I'm just not as scared. And the Vikings, in terms of pass rushing, those 2 bookends have been rock solid, as scary as any duo in the league. So I don't see, while Balaga and Bakhtiari are a really good duo themselves at tackle, I like Hunter and Griffin to win that matchup most of the time and create some problems.
Absolutely, and if the Vikings are able to get pressure on Rodgers too, that effectively neutralizes, I think the biggest concern that I feel like most of us have entering this game, and that is the secondary going up against Devontae Adams with Rodgers slinging it. So if the Vikings are able to get a nice, effective pass rush on a consistent basis through 4 quarters, this game could heavily favor the Vikings from a defensive perspective, because really, if you can find a matchup for Devontae Adams, and I'm not saying it's going to be easy, but if you can find one cornerback that gets hot within this rotation that the Vikings have been employing over the last couple of weeks, that's really the only guy that truly needs to be slowed down in this offense, because I don't think Aaron Jones is beating the Vikings by himself. He's just not that. He's not that type of running back. And if Rodgers can't throw on time, you mentioned it before, he has a tendency to throw the ball away when he has a chance to attempt a risky throw. Pressure will do that to you. So this really does come down to what Griffin and Hunter are able to do, and if they can get off early. If the Vikings can get off to an effective start defensively, not put themselves in a 21-0 hole, I think they put themselves in a nice position to win this football game. Moving over to the defensive side of the football, the Packers have certainly improved defensively since last year. Credit to them for going out there and signing a couple of guys that have certainly helped. Adrian Amos from Chicago has been outstanding. You look at honestly, all 3 of their kind of splash defensive signings between Amos and then the 2 Smiths, Za'Darius, and Preston, they have really panned out very well for the Packers. They got 3 guys that fit their scheme well, that complement the other guys in their roster. And I think you can make a very strong argument that the best players on their defense are the 3 guys that they signed away from other teams this last offseason. So, starting with their defensive line, Mike Pettin's going to run a 3-4 defense. He's been doing this since he was in Buffalo and even before that as well. And so you will get some interesting looks off the edge. That defensive line is not much to write home about. You got Dean Lowry, Kenny Clark, the big monster in the nose. He's the most dangerous player that's going to be lining up exclusively on that defensive line. Then you've got Tyler Lancaster as well, who does not pose much of a threat relative to the rest of this league, of course. So the big piece here is how they're going to line up Preston Smith and Zadarius Smith, because those guys will move all around the formation. You see Zadarius in particular being the more pass rush heavy player. That's most of his game is rushing the passer. He's not.
Yep.
I don't think he's that complete, in terms of slowing down the run or covering anything else like that. He really is a defensive end that's labeled a linebacker. So he'll move around the formation. He'll get both, the left side and the right side, however the Vikings are able to, settle this offensive line. He's also the guy that the Vikings will probably have an extra blocker in for. They'll probably try to throw a tight end on him. That's what kind of makes this formation difficult. You'd line up the tight end on your strong side, and then they blitz Zadarius Smith off the weak side, for example. So they do move him around effectively, and he's very dangerous. And Preston Smith is kind of the same way. He's more of a stay-at-home linebacker than Zadarius Smith is, but he does offer that pass rushing ability as well.
Right. Those are. I mean, Smith is the big name to look for.
Just look for Smith.
The Packers defense. Yes, exactly. And then the Vikings have battled against tough pass rushers before, and this offensive line is protecting Kirk pretty darn well lately. So I think where the Vikings can expose this group is going to be with the run game. Packers run defense has been rather weak all year long. Opposing running backs have taken advantage of it, and this is true, I think, for whether Dalvin Cook plays, whether he doesn't. I think the Vikings are going to be able to run the ball pretty well. I think the way that Madison and Boone run downhill and they kind of finish runs, they're not. I mean, obviously being elusive is a good thing, but their attitude is more find the hole, one cut, get upfield, and then get as many yards as you can that way. And I like that style with his zone scheme against his Packers front. So I don't think the Vikings will lose a whole lot in terms of their run game if Dalvin's out for that reason. And again, I think that's one way to really keep both Smith players kind of at bay and keep them neutralized is to run the ball well at them and then make them a little bit more hesitant to be aggressive up the field, rushing the passer.
Absolutely. You look at kind of one of the downsides of running a 3-4 base defense is that you tend to be better pass rushing, but you do give up a little bit more, in terms of run defense. And the Packers certainly they kind of fit that mold. They have a ton of sacks, most of them coming from someone named Smith.
Yeah.
But they don't effectively contain. That could be going up the middle. If you can get past Kenny Clark going up the middle, you're good. You're going to get 4, 5, 6, 7, etc. And if you're going to the edge, I don't trust any of these linebackers for the Packers to slow down, especially if Dalvin Cook plays. He ran wild the last time these two teams played. Like, there is legitimate precedent here to state that Dalvin Cook could easily go for 150 again if he's able to play 70 to 85% of the snaps, which I tend to lean like that the Vikings aren't going to use him all that much.
Yeah.
I'm hoping that's not the case. But
if they've already clinched a spot, which is very possible,
entering
the
this
Rams
game,
the Rams lose Saturday night, they're going to be in the playoffs. I would imagine that they'll proceed with a lot of caution and probably not play him, but you never know. And if Rams do win, then there's going to be more of a sense of urgency to win this game, and I'm sure Dalvin will be at least suited up. But like you said, this defense can be exposed, and Dalvin certainly has that home run ability. We saw it last time these two teams played.
Yep. And they do have two cornerbacks that I would consider, honestly, I'd consider both of them to be gamblers at this point. Jair Alexander specifically is the one that gets a little bit more name recognition, being a first-round pick out of Louisville. He's been dangerous in the past, not just to the Vikings, but to pretty much every team around the league. But he also can be exposed in the same way that Marcus Peters has been exposed throughout his career. Trying to jump a play, make a big play for the defense, and ends up allowing a significant play downfield. The same can be said for Kevin King. He's not as dangerous as Alexander. He's a bigger, more physical cornerback, but he is the one that beat Kirk Cousins on that big play that decided the first matchup. So the cornerbacks are two guys to keep an eye on. I also do like the rookie Darnell Savage. It's probably the best jersey name to have, by the way. If you're a Packers fan and you're going to buy a jersey, why would you not buy a Savage jersey? It's perfect.
Because it works if he leaves the team, too. It's like, yeah I'm a Savage.
I'm Savage. Exactly, yeah. He's been a solid player all season. He's having a great rookie campaign. But as a whole, the big pieces here, look for the Smiths and look for Adrian Amos over the top. He basically plays center field for this defense and can be effective in the same ways that you've seen Anthony Harris be effective for the Vikings throughout this past season and really last season as well. So that's basically the makeup of this defense. You know, if you're able to neutralize, I think Zadarius Smith is really the one that you need to shut down, just because he is definitively, to me, the best pass rusher that they're going to have on this team. He's the guy that you should double team. Preston Smith is solid, but he doesn't get to the passer as effectively as Zadarius Smith. He's more of a cleanup crew guy than a guy that is busting off the edge and beating your best offensive lineman. That tends to be Zadarius Smith. So if you can slow him down, find a way to keep him off the board, that really will put the Vikings offense in a position to run downhill, as you noted, and then also take advantage of the soft spots in the secondary. Like I said, they do gamble quite a bit at corner. They also get beat quite a bit just straight up. Alexander has very high potential. In my opinion, he hasn't realized it just yet. There are moments that make him look like an all-pro, and there are moments that make him look like he should be working at Walgreens. So that's basically what I see from this defense front to back. Ultimately, if you slow down Zadarius Smith, you're probably going to be in a good position to win this football game. So, I look at this team as a whole. I'm going to pose this question to you that I brought up earlier. You have the opportunity here to flip quarterbacks if you want. You can have Aaron Rodgers with the Vikings, or you can have Kirk Cousins the way that he's been playing all year. Who would you rather have? I mean,
for this game only?
For this game only. I've gone through it with you. Statistically, it's been all Cousins. Overall this year, in terms of bringing your team back when they're down or winning the game, putting the team on your back and winning the football game, again, it's been Cousins all year. He has been the better quarterback all season long. But in this game on Monday night, where Cousins is 0-8, by the way, I'm sure they'll tell you that.
I was gonna bring that up, but
they're gonna tell you that.
I'm going with Kirk. I am, and for
confidently?
as much as not really because of the whole primetime thing, but that's I mean, I've been a big Rodgers guy. I still am. I still think he's a bro and would be sick to hang out with and all that. And I think I also think he's a top 5 talented quarterback of all time. With that said, though, clearly he's dropped off. I'm not blind to that. This year, it's certainly a down year for him. And meanwhile, it's an up year for Kirk. He's just been efficient. He's taking care of the ball. And this is without Adam Thielen. His number 2 receiver has been B.C. Johnson for a majority of the season. So you have to take that into account. He's playing really well. He's taking care of the ball. He's throwing deep better than anybody in the NFL in terms of accuracy. I think he's the guy I'd want despite the 0-8 Monday night record because, for what it's worth, Aaron Rodgers is 0-3 as a starter at US Bank Stadium.
That's a good point. So we're bringing 2 losing records into this matchup.
Yep.
I would take Kirk as well, but I think to me it just comes down to the fact that Cousins has just been better this year. That I can't emphasize this enough because we don't get no one in the national media is going to tell you that, or no one.
Well, it's funny because the whole Pro Bowl thing came out, and I don't like doing the whole Pro Bowl thing because it sucks because it's all about it's a popularity contest way more than it is about actual performance, and guys get their incentives and their contracts based on Pro Bowls, and guys get screwed over when they should be getting a bonus, and vice versa. Guys that don't deserve one are getting one, but. When Rodgers was announced as a Pro Bowl quarterback in the NFC, that's the one that people are questioning the most out of really any part of the roster. And, people are saying, well, Kirk or Dak should definitely be in instead of him. And you can make a case for Kirk or Dak to be the guy, but I think most people think Rodgers does not belong. He's basically in there because of name recognition, I guess, and the fact that his team is 11-3 versus Dak at 7-7, Kirk at 10-4, but those guys have definitely played a lot better than Aaron Rodgers has.
I would agree. And hopefully Kirk does have the opportunity to play in the Pro Bowl because he definitely deserves it. So,
or he does not get the chance to play in the Pro Bowl because he is preparing for a game the next week.
That's an excellent point. It's an excellent point. All right, let's jump into our picks here and wrap this thing up. Start with the Packers and Vikings game since we just discussed it. Ultimately, it sounds like you're leaning Minnesota. Everything that you've said to date suggests that you're on the Vikings here. Is that the case?
Yes, I am leaning Minnesota. I think the Vikings will win by about a touchdown. I said this before last week's Chargers game, but of the final 3 games of the season, I was the most confident about this game, the Packers game, and I still am. Vikings at home. I don't think there's a team in the NFL that I would pick to beat the Vikings at US Bank Stadium right now. Maybe the Ravens, but overall, I like the Vikings to win this game. I think the Packers are a super overrated 11-3 team. I'm going with the Vikings.
Yeah, I'm going with the Vikings as well. If Dalvin Cook plays, I feel even more strongly. Is that normal? Stronger. Yeah, better.
That would work.
Better. Yeah, I feel very good about this matchup as it is, but I feel even better if Dalvin Cook is on the field. Obviously, to me, the Packers and Vikings always play close. It's been like that basically my entire life. Even when the Vikings are bad or the Packers are bad, these games are always close. So, to me, this is probably going to be a 5 or 6 point game. It might come down to a field goal, but ultimately, I do think the Vikings win this game. I think they're the more complete team right now, and the quarterback is playing better. Have I said that enough times this episode? The Vikings have been the better team this year. They royally screwed themselves over, back in week 2, which again, just another reason to figure out that scheduling. No division games in September, please, moving forward. So both of us are on the Minnesota. We believe that the Vikings are going to get this job done, and we'll move into week 17 with a chance for the North. So, let's get into the other picks for this week, starting with Houston and Tampa Bay. That's the first game that will start out this week. I believe that one's on Saturday. We get a Saturday slate of games this weekend for the fantasy championship. So Houston heads down to Tampa Bay. They need a win. They just came off of a huge one against Tennessee, but Tennessee will have the opportunity to get right back into it next week. If Houston loses, do they get a job? Do they get the job done in Tampa Bay?
I got Tampa Bay, and it just seems like.
Is that a hate pick? Is that a pick that you don't like?
No. Hey, I'm a big Deshaun Watson fan. This is more of a both teams are really weird, and I'm going to pick against the grain because I know you're going to pick Houston, and I kind of want to get a leg up on you. So that's honestly, if I were to give you, full disclosure as to why I'm picking the Bucs, that's going to be it. Yeah,
I'm taking Houston. I would take Houston over most teams because I do think that they're one of the best overall teams in the NFL this season, despite the fact that they have been a bit of a roller coaster. But they're extremely talented. I want to say they're well coached, but I don't have a great read on Bill O'Brien, so I might give the coaching edge here to Bruce Arians. But ultimately, I think Houston gets it done. I think this is going to come down to another Jameis mistake. He's going to throw an interception.
That's very likely considering the receivers he's playing with this week. No Godwin or Evans. But I'm still going to pick him just because.
Because why not? All right. So we're split on that one. Buffalo at New England. This is one of the, if you're an AFC person, if you're someone who tracks the AFC consistently, this is one of the most fun matchups that we've seen in years because this gives Buffalo the opportunity to win a division that, let's just be real here. This would be great to see New England dethroned, and Buffalo has a legitimate opportunity to do so. They're playing better football right now collectively than New England is. That being said, we've been calling Buffalo pretenders all year, and New England is a dynasty for a reason, so how does this one shake out?
I think the Patriots freaking kill them.
Yeah.
I think it's part of that's just I feel like this Patriots defense is going to shred Josh Allen, and I think the Bills the Bills are going to be lucky to score like 10 points in this game. So I got Patriots at home. I think that Bills offense gets exposed.
I'm taking Buffalo because I want to see it. Not because I necessarily think they're the better team, but because I want to be on the right end of history here.
All right.
Buffalo has... I
don't hate it.
They have a very, very good defense as well. New England's offense is soft too. This team, this is a matchup between two great defenses and two very subpar offenses. So to me, I'll take the mobile quarterback to get the win. Give me that. That's the difference here. The fact that Josh Allen can move around a little bit and Tom Brady is simply not himself. He's still going to get this team into the playoffs, and I'm sure New England will do fine in the playoffs, but he's not himself. I'm sorry. Moving on to the next one here, another great matchup. This one is, huge for the Vikings. This one also played on Saturday. Los Angeles, the Rams, that is, they head to San Francisco, and as you previously mentioned, if Los Angeles loses this game, the Vikings are effectively in the playoffs before they even see the field on Monday night. Does San Francisco get this one done for the boys in purple?
They do. Despite the loss at home last week to Atlanta,
yeah.
I think the Rams, I remember last time these two teams played, Jared Goff had 12 yards passing through 3 quarters and a couple picks. It was horrendous. And I'm going to trust the Niners defense to do that again. Jared Goff is that's the worst contract and quarterback history. It's bad.
Certainly making Kirk Cousins' contract look good. I'll take San Francisco as well. They're the better team. It's hard for me to say this, but this year, Kyle Shanahan has done a better job coaching than Sean McVay has. So I think they have the coaching edge. They've got the home field advantage. They're still without Richard Sherman, I believe. But ultimately, I think that San Francisco gets this one done, and that ultimately is what decides whether or not Dalvin Cook plays, I think. So I would look for the Niners to get that one, and the Vikings in the postseason as well. Jacksonville and Atlanta, 2 really bad teams. Game that we probably don't want to pick, but have to. Who you got in this one?
Atlanta's actually been pretty good lately, which is weird because they beat the Saints and the 49ers on the road. In the past month.
Hey, they have a good team. They just aren't.
They do.
Good.
They were 1-7. Now they're 5-9. I don't know what it is, but the Falcons are good now, so I'm going to pick them at home.
Yeah, I'm taking the Falcons as well. Julio Jones is a beast. I expect him to devour this Jacksonville secondary that no longer has Jalen Ramsey. So, Baltimore, Cleveland. This one could have been a fun game, but Cleveland kind of pissed down their leg, and this is no longer a fun kind of rematch of the trouncing.
Browns. Yeah, the Browns beat them by 15.
They crushed them
last time, but I'm going with Baltimore. Although I wanted to pick Cleveland, I really did, and it was just about 3 weeks ago or so. I kind of finally hopped off that Cleveland train.
Yep, I'm in on Baltimore as well. I don't think that anyone can beat Baltimore until I see it. That's just how I feel about the Ravens right now. That offense is just they don't punt, and when they kick, they make it. So I don't know how you beat the Ravens right now. So I'll take Baltimore. New Orleans at Tennessee. This is a uncharacteristically interesting showdown between an NFC and an AFC opponent late in the season. Drew Brees will continue to try to mount that touchdown record, so Tom Brady is unable to catch him. On the other hand, Ryan Tannehill will try to get Tennessee right back into things in the AFC South after losing to Houston last week. Who you got in this one?
I got Tennessee. Road Drew Brees is going to show up. It's pretty nuts how much different he is at the Superdome, especially in prime time where he just happens to never miss a throw. On the road against a Tennessee defense that is sneaky good. The secondary I think can be exposed, and I'm sure Michael Thomas will have a good game, but they do have some sneaky guys in the front seven. I got Tennessee winning this game, and I'm actually pretty confident in that.
I'm going to take New Orleans because they were my Super Bowl pick. I still think they're arguably the best team in the NFC. They're extremely dangerous top to bottom. Michael Thomas is having a historic season. I expect that to continue at Tennessee, and they get the job done for my Houston Texans. Carolina at Indianapolis, another terrible late season matchup here. Really no relevance to anything here. Kyle Allen has fallen completely apart. We might see Will Grier. That could be fun. Jacoby Brissett has not been great over the last several weeks. That offense has been, a show to say the least.
Mm-hmm.
Who you got in this one?
I think the Colts bounce back after the Saints game. They're going to win. Panthers. I know for a fact that Will Grier is better than Kyle Allen, so they do have that going for them. But I'll take the Colts mostly because they're at home in this one.
I'll take Carolina just because there has been a weird trend this year of players getting a win on their first start, quarterbacks that is.
That's true.
We've had David Blau, all the backups that have came in and won football games. Gardner Minshew probably being the best story out of all of them. there's been a lot of wins for first timers at the quarterback position, and if you're going to go against a team to try to get that first win, Indianapolis is a good candidate right now based on the fact that their roster is essentially completely depleted, and they're in just a horrible position at this point in the season. So, all right, the next one up here, real barn burner. We expected this one to be, excuse me, we expected this one to be a matchup between and whatever teams. However, Miami has kind of gotten a few wins here and have looked solid, at least offensively. And Cincinnati has brought Andy Dalton back in, and he's made them competitive again. So this matchup doesn't matter for postseason contention-wise, but might be a little bit interesting based off of the way the two teams play. Cincinnati heads to Miami. Who gets it done?
I got Miami. Also, did you know who is the leading rusher for the Dolphins right now?
Isn't it Ryan Fitzpatrick?
It is. He has 213 yards or something like that.
Yeah. He just passed Mark Walton, who is no longer in the NFL anymore.
Yeah.
So
the guy has 200-something yards, and he's leading his team.
I'm here
15 games.
I'm here for Ryan Fitzpatrick, Devontae Parker. That connection is working, and it's awesome. So next one here, Pittsburgh heads to the New York Jets. The Jets have not been good this year, but I think they do have the potential to end this season for Pittsburgh. Duck Hodges is going to get the start once again. He was awful the last time he was on the field. The Jets and the Pirates, it's funny, the Steelers season at home in New York this weekend.
Yes, I'm going with the Jets because of how bad the Steelers looked against the Bills during that primetime game.
I'm gonna go with Pittsburgh just because they seem to find a way to win games. Though I do truly believe that the Jets can win this game, and I'm not going to be shocked if they do. But Pittsburgh just keeps finding ways to win, with exception to that ridiculous outing that you just mentioned there. So I'll pick Pittsburgh. We'll split on that one. Giants and Redskins here are the next one. NFC East matchup that doesn't matter. We got one coming up here that matters a little bit more. It's going to be Eli Manning. He's going to try to break that 500 record, and he's going against an opponent that he certainly has a strong opportunity to do so.
I think I'm going to go with the Giants. They found their offense a little bit last week, although it was against Miami. But I'm going to go with the Giants just because it seemed like they have a competent offense now. And whether it's against bad team or bad defense or not.
This is a bad. Washington's a little bit underrated defensively, I suppose.
They're a little bit better than Miami, but I'm still going to go with the Giants.
Yeah, I'm going to go with the Giants as well. You mentioned the 1974 offense that Bill Callahan likes to run. That's just not going to get it done in today's NFL consistently. So give me the Giants. As long as they score 20, they're going to win this football game. Detroit at Denver. Showdown between two teams, kind of two what could have been teams here. We're into a situation now with Drew Lock, who seems to be trending in the right direction. Detroit, without Matthew Stafford, completely depleted offensively. I don't know how they get it done. Do you see a way that the Lions win this one in Denver?
No, Denver's winning this game.
Yeah, I've got Denver as well. Detroit just can't compete right now. I feel sorry for their fans, too. There's just nothing left on that offense to work with. Marvin Jones is out now, too. I mean, it's Kenny Galladay against the world right now for them. So, and Denver's defense is their strong point. So, give me Denver. Oakland at the Chargers. Oakland has fallen off completely. The Chargers, obviously coming off of a pretty decisive loss to the Vikings last week. This matchup could have been fun a couple of weeks ago. It's certainly not anymore. It doesn't matter for the AFC at all if we got in this one.
I got the Chargers. There's no really reason why. I don't know. Next, let's pick a different game.
The most important game of the weekend, period. Dallas at Philadelphia. This one will ultimately decide the NFC East division, and we will find out where the 5 seed will be traveling as after the result of this game here. Philadelphia is depleted offensively. They're down to 2 receivers. One of them doesn't like to catch passes, apparently. Looking at you, Mr. Arcega-Whiteside. And Dallas, on the other hand, is coming off of probably their best win in terms of complete performance, maybe of the season.
It is, for sure. That's why I'm going with Philly, because there's no way they do that twice in a row. So I'm going with Philly at home, even though their number one receiver right now is Greg Ward, who was was he a practice squad guy like 2 weeks ago? Maybe he wasn't even in the league. He might not have been in the league a month ago. He might have been the same NFL status as us about a month ago.
Yeah. So I'm taking Philadelphia too. I'm taking them for a different reason, though. They're playing at home. Dallas has not played well really anywhere this season for the most part, but they definitely don't play great on the road. And I think that the Philly fans will get to Dallas this week. I think they'll calm their whatever excitement was built last week. I think Philadelphia will do a good job effectively taking that away from them. So Philadelphia for both of us. Arizona at Seattle coming down to the end here.
Seattle,
yeah. And the last one, Kansas City plays the Bears this weekend. Does Pat Mahomes get it done against that defense?
Yes, it's the what if bowl for the Bears when they drafted Trubisky with Mahomes still on the board.
That's a good point.
I'm taking the Chiefs. I don't think that'll be very close.
Yeah, I'm on the same page as you. Kansas City can kind of play defense now, by the way. So good luck, Mitchell Trubisky, trying to keep up with Pat Mahomes in that offense. So that rounds out our picks for the week. Let's finish up here with the gambling lock and get you guys out of here. Last week, as I said, my Tampa Bay -3.5. That one was a winner. Drew's Los Angeles Rams -2 did not hit. That did not go over well for you.
No, it didn't. No, it didn't. This week I have Titans +3 at home against the Saints. I think they're going to win the game outright. So +3 obviously is the lock.
Yeah.
The Saints on the road, Breeze is not going to be as effective. Meanwhile, Ryan Tannehill in the last few games at home has been electric in that offense. So I'll take the Titans +3.
Yep. Okay. So I'm sensing a bit of a theme here. I'm going to go Buffalo +7. I think they're also going to win that game outright. That's against New England. I'm betting against the Patriots. I figure I can't get any more wrong than I've been this year. I may as well just throw this one up as a Hail Mary. If Buffalo is able to win this game, it just means so much for that organization, for that fan base. That's really why I'm making this pick. I think that 7 points is a lot to give to two defensive teams, too. This one could be like, the final score could realistically be like 10-6, and I could still win that bet.
It's going to be like 16-0 Patriots.
Okay. Well, I don't think that's going to happen. So, Buffalo +7 for me. Tennessee +3 for Drew. Final thoughts before we get out of here.
No, I don't have any.
Everything good?
No. No.
I don't have anything interesting to say either. I'm tired and I'm ready to be done with this show. So, as always, we appreciate you guys listening. You can find the show on iTunes, Stitcher, Google Play, everywhere that you get your podcasts except for Spotify. You can subscribe there. We appreciate that. Leave a review if you want. That'd also be nice for us. You can find us on the Daily Norseman as well. Leave a comment in the section. We like to read that every week. It's fun for us. And you can watch us on YouTube as well if you prefer that method of content. So that's all we got for you this week. We appreciate you guys listening as always. And hopefully the next time we talk to you, we'll be talking about a chance for the Vikings to win the NFC North. Regardless of how unlikely that seems, we'll have an opportunity to talk about it if the Vikings are able to get it done on Sunday. So thanks for listening, and we'll catch you later, folks.